Hi, I'm Melissa Cobb. Come fly with AOPA. This week, the AOPA Sweepstakes Cessna 170 heads to the Avionics shop, new tech from Garmin, and one seriously cool airplane called the Cheshire Cat. The AOPA Sweepstakes airplane is on to the next phase of its transformation. It's at the Avionics shop. Let's see what's in store.
So I am here with the 1953 Cessna 170B, our 2023 Sweepstakes airplane, and I'm getting ready to hop in and go for a little flight over to Falcon Field in Peachtree City, Georgia, to Gardner Lowe. Carl Gardner and his amazing team over there at Falcon are going to be putting a brand new panel inside of our Sweepstakes airplane. So let's head on over.
Alright, mixture's rich, trim is set, top is 40, here we go. Many of you are probably thinking, well, how long is the avionics upgrade going to take? It's probably going to take upwards of 2 months. So the flight over to Falcon is super short and sweet. It's about 10 minutes. Falcon is pretty much my second airport home. Carl is a longtime family friend, so I'm super excited to be able to take the 170 over to him and let him work his magic. Falcon traffic, Cessna 3224 Alpha is about 2 miles to the southeast. I'm going to be following the traffic inbound for the 4531 Falcon. Falcon traffic, Cessna 3224 Alpha, short final, 31 Falcon.
So 783 Echo, turning left crosswind, Falcon.
All right, I made it over here to Falcon. I am parked in front of the Gardner Lowe hangar. Carl's always super busy, but he's got airplanes everywhere today. So hopefully he can get started on this thing sooner rather than later.
So what we're going to do is we're going to fabricate a whole brand new panel, and in that fabrication we're actually putting the U-yoke in it so we can position the avionics a little bit more strategically on the panel. So what we're putting in it is we're going to put the Aspen E5 in there. We're putting in the PS Engineering 8000G. It's going to be Bluetooth. A lot of good features with that 8000. We're putting in the Garmin GNC 355, which is going to be a WASP GPS with a comm in it. And then we're putting in the Garmin 255, which is going to give us ILS features. All that's going to be interfaced into the Aspen, along with the transponder, which is going to clean it up with a 345 transponder, ADS-B in and out, which will also be Bluetooth to your iPad, so you can have any other functions you want to on that. And in that, we're going to put all these circuit breakers in the panel, and we're cutting everything out of this panel. I mean everything. All the wires are coming out of it. We're taking this panel from 1950s to 2023, so we're catapulting it into the 21st century. So I'm excited that we're going to make a safer airplane for somebody that's going to get this airplane, and they'll be able to use it for years to come.
Well, thank you so much, Carl, for being a part of the project. You know, you're a very close family friend, so I'm very happy to have you as part of the project, and it's going to be a really nice airplane when you're done with it.
It is. It's going to be very awesome, and I'm just telling y'all, you might even start crying when you see it.
That is going to be one really cool panel. So AOPA Sweepstakes Restoration Manager Kayla Hunt joins us today. Hey Kayla, can you give us some behind the scenes information on the 170? So it really was in not bad shape when we got it. And so a lot of the stuff is pretty good. The instruments, the interior, what's going to happen to it after it's all taken out of the airplane?
Yeah, absolutely, Alyssa. So I'm actually here in the avionics shop, Gardner Low Aviation Services, here at the Atlanta Regional Airport in Peachtree City, Georgia today. The airplane is behind me. As you can see, they are working on it right now as we're talking. But yeah, it's funny you asked that. So this entire rack over here next to me is going to be donated to the Cessna 170 Association. We've been working with this organization throughout the restoration. They've been receiving certain items like the propeller, the seats. So we're going to be sending a lot of the old instruments over to the 170th organization.
Oh, wow. That is so awesome. Cool. All right. Well, I can't wait to check back in with you when the panel is complete. That's going to be so exciting to see.
Yes, I'm excited too.
All right. Thanks, Kayla. Well, last week we gave you a quick summary of the Trent Palmer case. So Trent Palmer is a pilot and YouTube content creator. He's been in a 3-year battle with the FAA centered on minimum safe altitudes and low-level inspection pass he had done to potentially land in a friend's backyard. Well, we've since had the chance to talk to Trent's attorney, AOPA Pilot Protection Services panel attorney Robert Schulte, and he shares with us the precedent that could be set from this case for all GA pilots.
Well, the case raises a number of issues, at least in my mind, but to your specific question of precedents, right now, as I understand the ruling, and you mentioned this earlier, is that there's this mysterious 500 bubble that has to surround every aircraft, and therefore, under no circumstances, unless you are actually engaged in a final approach, can an aircraft operator operate within 500 feet of persons or structures on the ground. Now, why is that concerning? Well, that suggests that, for example, if several aircraft are attempting to land on a gravel bar, which under most circumstances is a fairly tight area, as a result of this ruling, once that first aircraft lands, the second pilot has a choice. He can either land or conduct an inspection pass to satisfy for him or herself whether or not the landing is advisable for that pilot and for that aircraft. But if they conduct that pass and that first aircraft is on the ground and that first person is on the ground, that is a violation. Theoretically, if someone were to do an inspection pass on a grass runway at an airport community, for example, Kentmore, Maryland, most of the houses that line that grass runway are within 60 feet of the runway itself. So if someone were to come there, unless they're actually landing at that point in time, if they do a pass to make sure there's no deer, obstructions, or anything else on the runway, that is a violation of 91-119 according to this ruling. I could create a number of other examples, but the fact of the matter is the FAA has sent, and the board has sent, a very confusing message to our community. And the message is, unless you're landing, actually engaged in what otherwise would be called a final approach, and you fly past something, you do a go-around, you are in violation. That's a problem.
You can watch my full interview with Robert. Just click on the card in the upper right of your screen. Well, acting FAA Administrator Billy Nolan has announced that he's going to be stepping down this summer. That means the FAA hasn't been with a permanent chief in place since Steve Dixon stepped down March last year. Now, the White House had nominated Philip Washington for the post. There was a lot of controversy surrounding that, and he actually withdrew from consideration just last month. Now, AOPA President Mark Baker has spoken up, and he said that the FAA needs the stability of a permanent leader. Well, Garmin has expanded its PlaneSync aircraft management system. The new GDL60 that connects to certain Garmin navigators, flight displays, and electronic flight instruments lets users remotely update databases and check things like your fuel quantity, electrical system status, and other parameters that you can get through the Garmin Pilot app. Now, this unit costs $3,995, and it works off Wi-Fi or cellular LTE networks, and there are also subscription costs for that. If you're wondering what happened to AOPA's Extra 300L, it has gone to the winning bidder, and that is Minnesota State University Mankato's Aviation program. So they came to pick it up in Lakeland, Florida, right after Sun and Fun. They have a busy professional pilot training program, and they're going to use the Extra for upset recovery training. We recently had the opportunity to catch up with former U.S. Air Force Thunderbird's lead solo pilot, Michelle Mace Curran, and now she's on a new mission to inspire future generations to achieve their dreams.
I am a former F-16 fighter pilot and former lead solo for the Thunderbirds. I did 13 years on active duty in the Air Force, and now I'm an entrepreneur. So while I was on the Thunderbirds, people generally assumed that I had been one of those kids at an air show watching the demo and being like, I'm gonna go do that someday. But it was a lot later for me. About halfway through ROTC, I visited Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida, and I saw my first fighter jet up close. I saw 2 F-15s take off in full afterburner at dusk from the ramp. So you get the orange flame coming out the back, the jet noise vibrates your whole body. I was like, forget the FBI, I want to go do that.
You can watch her full story on our YouTube channel. Just click on the card in the upper right of your screen. And finally, a cool airplane with an even better backstory, meet Mike Daniel and his Carbon Cub, Cheshire Cat.
Aviation's always been in the back of my mind. I've always wanted to fly airplanes. And what I started doing was loitering around the Truckee airport and watching kind of what was going on and seeing what people were doing and what they were flying. And at that point, I really knew almost nothing. I could identify a Cessna, and that was about it. And so I marched down, and I ended up talking to the flight school down there and just started flying. And then over time, and the more and more I continued to fly, I just started to gravitate towards the backcountry stuff. You know, it was Quinn and a number of the other guys that fly locally out of Truckee as well that I'd watch every day pulling out and come home, and the big balloon tires and all this, the fun looking stuff. And, you know, that inspired me to keep going down that path. You know, as time went on, I tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And in 2020, the pandemic had just hit. I had been looking at Super Cubs for a couple of years. Finally kind of decided, okay, it's time to pull the trigger. I went to go look at Super Cubs again, and these things were going overnight for $100,000 more than they were the night before. So that just sort of led me down the path. All right, I think I'm going to go after a new aircraft, and I want to figure out how to make it unique and utilize my background and skills to, you know, sort of accomplish what I did. I'm a visual guy. I've worked in visual design my whole life. So when I ordered the plane and I started thinking through, oh, these color schemes, and do you want our off-the-shelf check boxes, you know, on the order form? I said, there's no way I'm ever doing that. So as I started thinking about what this aircraft could be, I've always been a huge fan of Lewis Carroll and Alice in Wonderland. So I started thinking through some of the characteristics, the characters, the story, what all these things mean. And the Cheshire Cat's always been this prominent role that I've always loved. Cheshire Cat's job was to guide Alice through Wonderland when she needed it. I mean, just sort of be that guiding force. And so as I thought about the plane more and more, there's a quote in chapter 6 of the book. Alice is wandering through Wonderland and she bumps into the Cheshire Cat. She says, oh, Cheshire Cat, I'm so glad to see you. Can you tell me which way I ought to go from here? He says, well, that depends a great deal on where you're trying to get to. She says, well, I don't much care where. He says, well, then it doesn't much matter which way you go. And I thought about that quote, and it's sort of the core fundamental of this plane and backcountry flying. It's about going and exploring. The world's your wonderland. You know, go this direction, land, hang out, and turn around, go the other way. And so I felt that the Cheshire Cat was just kind of the great guiding force. And when my kids were born, I always said, you know, my role in life is to be the Cheshire Cat and help guide them when they need. Otherwise, the world's their wonderland. Go make something great of it. And yeah, so it's the backstory on the Cheshire Cat. So as I, you know, continue to think about the aircraft and the idea of the Cheshire Cat, I had to kind of figure out how I was going to implement that and whether it was going to be paint or airbrush or vinyl wrap and all that sort of stuff. So going through the logistics and trying to figure that out was one process. And then I wanted to take it and sort of put the creative process on steroids even more than just coming up with an interesting scheme and wrap. And so I came up with this idea of the augmented reality, which taps just kind of that world of, you know, Wonderland and this nonsensical, sort of surreal other side, I call it, and added the QR code. If you scan the QR code and hold your phone up to the plane, the cat comes to life. And what I'm trying to do with that is utilize these digital technologies in sort of relevant ways to inspire, you know, the youth to see and understand and think creatively about these opportunities that may exist that aren't even thought about yet in the world of aviation. You know, I think as we get older as humans, we sort of grow out of this like natural creativity, weird way of thinking, you know, where everything's new and you're absorbing, where there's so much of that to be brought back into life when you get older as well. And I think like just these creative kids' brains, you give them an opportunity like this and you get those wheels turning about what can and does exist out there in the world, and how technologies that exist can be plugged in and applied in realms of life that may have never even been thought about, like aviation. And you know, taking QR, digital mediums, storytelling, you know, brand engagement, whatever you want to call it, and doing that in interesting, relevant ways, I think you can inspire youth to think differently about the opportunities that exist in general aviation in general.
Well, that's pretty neat. I bet the airplane is going to inspire a lot of future aviators. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fly with AOPA. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest news and videos. And this week, we leave you with some more flying from Mike Daniel and Cheshire Cat, going all over the backcountry. Now, be sure to send in your favorite flying videos at the link in the description. You just might see them on an upcoming show. And as always, if you're not already an AOPA pilot, we'd love for you to join us. Click the link at the end of the video to learn more about our trial membership.